Okay, everybody, this is Sheets, and Bobby is, I believe, in Costa Rica. And just in case he's unable to get online and do a slate review of the Christmas slate, I wanted to take a shot at it with my usual, hopefully different take on how to approach slates like this and slates in general. And as he's away, pretty much through the new year, he's definitely going to be chiming in and hopefully going to get a connection so that he can give you guys some of his takes and continue to provide content. But I did promise him that I would do my best to give you guys whatever insight I could come up with. So this is obviously a tremendously popular slate. Number one, because nobody else has anything else to do on Christmas, with the exception of people that celebrate Christmas and have things going on. So little veiled sarcasm there. The other thing that's great about this slate is that there are 5 games and there's no overlap. You can just basically sit on your butt and watch basketball all day, all night if you wanted to, without ever having to change I don't want to say without ever change the remote because you have to change from one channel. I don't think the same channel is going to broadcast all the games, but the point is that each game is kind of an island game, which from a DFS perspective makes things a little interesting, especially on the late swaps late swap sites, because the people that are kind of hanging around all day in front of their computer, which they should, I mean, if they want to be expert, are going to be constantly revamping lineups and changing lineups based on the performance of the earlier games relative to their lineups. So it does provide an edge for those who are willing to put in the time and the dedication to do it. And it makes it a little more difficult for the people that just want to just kind of put their lineups in and just let them roll. So with that said, they are offering $1 million to first, plus on DraftKings at least, plus the stocking bonus. Don't actually know what that is. Oh, every lineup that scores 20 plus steals or blocks combined, split a share of 50K, probably going to be like $2 per person, whatever. So what I'm going to do with this slate is what I love to do with all slates is I am going to start from the back. Because everybody else starts in the front, I want to make sure that we get the late game first and we work our way back. And as you guys have known, if there is a great stacking opportunity or the great plays in the late games, those are obviously my favorite type of situations anyway, so I am glad to start with those to begin with. And I think you'll find that when you look at games this way, it allows you to kind of look at the slate a little differently than if you started from the beginning. You could even look at them randomly, as opposed to just going beginning to end. And I think that you'll look at things a little differently. And, well, we'll see. As usual, my approach is just to kind of hopefully find low-owned plays that project well within a game stack environment, but that's always not so easy to find. Well, let's just see. So the very first game I want to look at is this Denver-New Orleans game, which, in the context of this slate, you would think, why am I bothering with this? I got Clippers-Lakers with all these studs from this game, and I got the Rockets over there. Then I got Giannis early, a little earlier. Denver kind of plays a little slow, and it's a high spread. Why bother with this? But that's why we kind of go through it this way. And I have to tell you that right off the bat, I mean, not even knowing ownership, I can tell you right now that Nikola Jokic is going to be incredibly low-owned on this slate. And given the fact that he's going to project just as well as some of these other guys that are going to be higher owned, let's put it that way, he could be someone I would add as a really interesting low-owned component to a lineup here or a lineup build. And we could talk about why he projects the way he does. I mean, they're playing New Orleans. Right? New Orleans is a pace-up spot for pretty much everybody. And all these nuggets should project well as a result. Because DraftKings really didn't price them up, given this matchup. So by its nature, they're going to project really well, and you'll see that they do. And you see Will Barton and Jamal Murray and Paul Millsap and Jokic. I mean, all these guys project to be really, really decent values in this spot, and they're going to be really, really low owned. So I would start again if I'm going to just start doing this. I'm going to start by just putting Jokic in. And now, if you even game watch or game log, Jokic has been sneaky good recently. I mean, he was kind of everybody was kind of yelling at him for the whole season, saying he couldn't hit a ceiling, he couldn't do anything. But if you'll notice in his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, look at these performances in the past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, 5 out of the last 6 games, you would have been very, very happy to have rostered him. Let's just put it that way. And with all these other studs to choose from between Giannis and Embiid and Harden and Westbrook and Kawhi, Paul George, and LeBron and AD, not that there's anything wrong with them, but this is a real low-owned way to start. Now, again, will I end up doing this? I don't know. But when I'm looking at this slate, I think this is an interesting spot to start with. Now, other guys on Denver, as I mentioned, you could add in. I mean, you could play Will Barton, you could play Jamal Murray, and I'll tell you that once again, these are going to be really, really low-owned guys, especially in a 5-game slate. Now, I think they'll be low-owned. What do I know? Just kind of watch your ownership as far as that goes. But I promise you they're going to be lower-owned than some of these other guys that really do not project that much better. Now, what would be great is if there were New Orleans guys on the other side. Now, the great thing about it is that this kind of forces our hand a little bit, because if, in fact, we're going to get ceilings out of these Denver guys with a 12-point spread or whatever it's probably going to end up being, you're going to absolutely need a New Orleans guy. So, even if he doesn't project all that great, you're going to have to kind of give him a bump here if you want to make a stack work. And that's not saying you have to, but so I'm looking at the New Orleans guys, and again, these projections are kind of preliminary and whatever, but I mean, it's no surprise that the guys are going to pop are the leading scorers. It's going to be Brandon Ingram or I would say Drew Holiday. So what I would do, I mean, Favors looks to be good too, but I think Drew Holiday and Ingram are the guys that are really going to have to bring it. You might even be able to argue that Lonzo Ball might have to be able to bring it also, just for the hell of it. And we're not going to necessarily do this, but you put Ball in here and you pick one, Ingram or Holiday. I really don't think there's much of a difference between the two, so I'll just go with whoever's lower priced at this point. We'll go with Drew Holiday. And look, I know there's 4 other games to get through, whatever it is, but I will tell you this. If these 4 premium matchups that happened before this game turn into kind of really great games of defensive struggles or whatever, I don't know. This is kind of a fun thing to have to close out your day. Late Christmas present. Let's put it that way. So that's the end of the review. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so going back, let's go to LA Clippers at LA Lakers. Now, kudos to the Laker organization. They had questionable tags on AD and LeBron, and that could have really made everybody's Christmas a whole lump of coal. Now, you'll know I don't really celebrate Christmas, so I'm going to get metaphors wrong, but I guess the lump of coal has something to do with this. So let's just take a look at this. Well, on the Clipper side, I have to say Paul George is looking like an insane play based on where he's priced. Now, the good news is, with respect to ownership, now, again, I go mixed on this. I've heard it argued that because it's a Christmas slate, you're going to get a lot of casual players. And as such, ownership is not going to be as big of a deal. I am not completely convinced that that's the case. I still think that DFS is so flooded with sharp players now that the additional players that will come from, the casual player, it's not going to make that much of a difference of an impact. That's just my view on it. So I do think there are going to be some sharp ownership plays. You know what I mean? I do think that the right plays are going to be higher owned, as usual. Maybe not as egregiously as a non-Christmas day, but I believe that it's going to be closer than people think. So I do think Paul George, because he projects so well, I mean, at this price, he is going to probably be the highest owned player on the slate. But who knows? He definitely does project to be a good play. Now, the other two guys that you're going to hear about, I believe, because they project pretty well, you're going to hear about Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell. You'll certainly hear about Kawhi Leonard. I mean, he's the guy, always looks to be a good play, never looks to be a great play. And I'm kind of in agreement with that. He's a fine play, but he's not – I don't think he's the ceiling guy that's going to win this slate. Look, if you could somehow get to him some other way and have him be the last guy in as a safe-ish type play, fine, but I don't think he's the guy you're going to want to prioritize. And I think that's an important distinction to make that I talk about all the time. I mean, there's one type of player that you're going to want to make your lineup, and another one you're going to want to hold your lineup, right? So I think that Kawhi would be the guy to kind of hold a lineup. So let's say, for example, that I did want to get this Denver-New Orleans stack rolling with no ownership. I could put a Kawhi in to kind of hold that lineup together, right? He's not going to have that much upside, I don't think, from that $8,900 price tag or whatever it is, $8,700. But I do think that his floor, call, whatever you want, I think his range of outcomes is safer than some of these other guys. But you're going to hear a lot about Montrezl Harrell and Lou Williams because they project okay. I think that both these guys are going to get more ownership than people think. I mean, I know that people look at the $5,500 price tag and they say, "Woo, this is really low." But there's a reason it's low, and they are facing the Lakers. It is a tough matchup, and this is why they project. His projections aren't that great. And I know what the opposite view is going to be. Boy, I know that the matchup is not great, but hell, he's only 5,500, but he can't have it both ways. So I think Montrezl Harrell's fine. I don't think he's that great. I think that he's actually going to be over-owned relative to the chances that he makes his price tag or pays off for his price tag. Now, I do grant the idea that he might have upside from that, which might make him a decent tournament play. So, I think that, the probability that he makes value is probably nothing great. I do think that there's upside to that you could consider, but I don't regard him as a priority play. I think he's a play, but I don't think he's that great. And same with Lou Williams, same type of deal. The reason why these guys are priced down the way they are is it's not just so that people will play them on Christmas. It's because the Lakers are a tough defensive matchup, and that's what all gets factored into the projection. So it's fine, but nothing great. I'll tell you this, from a straight value perspective, none of the guys on this Clipper side are any better than any of those Nuggets that I mentioned. Okay? So considering that I would say all those Clipper guys are going to be more popular than all those Nugget guys, I think you kind of know where I'm headed on that. Now, on the Lakers side, it's pretty easy. Both LeBron and AD both project well. They both look to be very, very good plays, and I would not fade them right off the bat. So between the two of them, again, I don't want to be that guy, but I think I would just play kind of an equal amount of them. I guess LeBron projects a little bit better relative to his price, and you can make the argument. And again, this is one of those things that's not factored into projections. I don't know how relevant it is, but they say LeBron because it's Christmas, he'll get up. I don't know about that. The other thing I would say, and this is a kind of Sheets narrative street. Last Christmas, I believe, because I was away and I was watching this game kind of as it was going on, is that he pushed himself to play on Christmas, and I think he got hurt and was out 3 weeks as a result. I'm pretty sure that's the case. From last Christmas, you can go check that game log out. It was either 2 Christmases ago, or no, it had to be last Christmas because he was on the Lakers. So he's going to play, but it's not. I wouldn't say he's that motivated to go 44 minutes if he had to, right? So LeBron or AD, one of them is fine. I don't like anybody else on the Lakers side. You might get some Rajon Rondo love or some Kyle Kuzma. I don't know. From a projection perspective, they're just not there. Or let's just put it that way. And again, comparing to these Nuggets guys, all those Nuggets guys project better than even Rondo, who I even believe Rondo is going to be a lower, higher owned than these Nuggets guys. So what I'm getting at here is that going from here back, I'm gonna have to find people that are better than these Nuggets guys at equal ownership, or if they're gonna be higher owned, they got to be much better for me to supplant them as my kind of core here. All right, so going back, Houston and Golden State. So on the Houston side, you have some interesting options. So first of all, at the top, Westbrook and Harden, both of them look just great. I mean, they look terrific. You could make the case that Westbrook is I can't even do that. I can't even say one's better than the other relative to their price. If you go to 100 different projection systems, I think you'll get 50, 100 different answers. Maybe Westbrook might be on the whole better projected. But I don't think it's that big of a deal. One thing I will say is that, again, this could be just my stupid theory, but the fact that Westbrook is 8.9 instead of 9,000 even, I think that will increase his ownership just a little bit, just psychologically to 8,900. Makes people want to play him more than if he were just 9,000. Again, no data to support this. Just seems like human nature that this would be the case. So either of these guys look like really, really good plays. So if there were a way to get Golden State guys in, then that could, if the Golden State guys weren't high owned, that could supplant this Denver thing as the main idea. So let's take a look at this. So let's put in, you want to make it harder or easier? Let's make it easier first. Let's put in Westbrook, and let's just see if anybody on Golden State can get there or can fill out a stack situation. Because remember, if you are going to presume Westbrook has a kind of a ceiling type game, the Golden State guys just have to get there. So it's not even just getting there. They have to exceed their expectations. So the guys that are in play from Golden State, again, it's not a big surprise here, but D'Angelo Russell is just going to have to be a guy you play if you want to stack the game. Now, you don't have to stack the game. You don't have to stack any game, right? You could play Westbrook as a total one-off, and you can go back to Denver guys and play him as a total one-off, and that is certainly a way to go, because considering that none of these games so far are such tremendous stack-type games. So, but for the hell of it, you can play Westbrook and Russell, for example, just as a 1v1 and have a really, really good, have a good little upside mini stack there. And as I mentioned, from an ownership stance, I don't think either of them are going to be that highly owned. Maybe if they pick up momentum, maybe one of them will be 20%. Maybe both will be 20%, but I don't think anything's going to be that egregious. The other guys from Golden State, there's Draymond, who just is, he's very frustrating, but that's why he's Draymond. He's always got that upside, and he's going to be pumped for this game, obviously. You also have to watch Glenn Robinson for whether he's out or not, because if he's in, then guys like Alec Burks probably take a little bit of a hit. So Draymond Green looks like a pretty decent play. You can go that way. So, like, for example, if you wanted to do this, if you wanted to go Westbrook here, and then you wanted to go Russell and Draymond, you want to get a little more robust with your stack, you get 2v1, you could do that. But again, it's not a game you necessarily have to stack. But keep in mind that if you do play a Westbrook, if you're playing him to be your lineup, in other words, if you're playing him to get that ceiling, it makes sense, at least, that you'd want to have a Golden State guy in there too, because if he does get his ceiling, then it's going to be because a Golden State guy was good enough to keep it close. Now, again, if you're just going to use Westbrook to fill out your lineup, like, for example, if once again we made that Denver stack work and it was really low owned, and you just want kind of a safer type guy, I mean, I think that Westbrook is a pretty nice, safe-ish type play to get, it's a number, 45, like even in a blowout, even when he doesn't make a ceiling. So if he's going to be a guy you're going to want to just kind of like fill in your lineup and to hold your lineup, then I think that he makes sense. But if you're going to play him to make your lineup, then I think that you probably would be better off running it back with one of these guys. Okay, going back to Milwaukee versus Philly, this is Embiid et al. Versus Giannis et none. Um, so I don't know if this is going to pick up a lot of steam, but Joel Embiid, the last several times that he played against Milwaukee, just obliterated them. Um, you could look it up, but the fantasy points against Milwaukee were through the roof, either several times in a row or on a very consistent basis over the last 5 games. So that is, something to consider, and it's something that's probably going to be factored into the projections at least somewhat. And when I look at it, yeah, I mean, Embiid looks like a good play. Does he look like a great play? Does he look like as good of a play as Westbrook? Maybe, actually. Does he look as good of a play as Paul George? Probably not. But what's the ownership going to be? I don't know. Actually, I don't know. I mean, I originally might think that maybe he's going to be a low-owned piece here, but if he works out to be really high-owned, he's just going to be a play. And I have no problem with him. He's probably my favorite, if not, I won't say my only play on Philly. Actually, there's not. There's actually 2 other plays that actually look pretty good on Philly. Pretty good. I mean, there's Tobias Harris, there's Horford, and kind of a drop to Simmons, I think. I don't know. That's kind of tough for me to say. I think all 4 of those secondary guys are, 3 of them secondary guys are okay. Simmons, Harris, and Horford. None of them really stand out. And I mean, quite honestly, I don't know where they would fit in a lineup construction of mine. I don't know if they have the upside to be a one-off to make my lineup. I don't know if any of them are safe enough to kind of hold my lineup either. I don't think that I have nothing against these plays per se, but I don't know if they're going to be priorities. I'll put them in my player pool and see what happens, but I'm not so sure that they're going to be a really big part of it. Milwaukee, first guy to look at is obviously Giannis, and he's projecting through the roof because he always projects through the roof because he's freaking nuts. I mean, the guy's insane. That's my statistical analysis of Giannis Antetokounmpo. Freaking nuts, insane. Just is. And he averages, 2 fantasy points a minute, and he's going to probably play over 30 minutes play over 30 minutes in this game. It's going to be tough, man. He's a tough fade. And I would say that so far of the studs that we talked about, between Harden and Westbrook and Giannis and then Paul George and what's his name, LeBron, AD, and all these guys, I mean, I think that Giannis is the best play, whatever that means, by pretty decent amount. But again, I mean, it is also going to be kind of a function of ownership. If he works out to be really, really popular, then maybe you don't play him in every lineup, or maybe you can fade him in some lineups. But given equal ownership between him and Harden and Westbrook and all that, I think as a one-off, I think Giannis makes a lot of sense. But the question is, again, is a Giannis one-off play with no Philly run back, for example, okay, better than a, I don't know, Westbrook or Harden play for Houston with a possible Russell or Russell Green run back from Golden State? I don't know. And these are kind of interesting decisions that you have to make. Can you play Giannis with Embiid? That could be something to think about, because both these guys project really well. And it's not as if one takes away from the other, really, because first of all, they're not going to be guarding each other. If Milwaukee knows what's good for them, they're not going to have Mahomes guard Embiid, that's for sure. And so Giannis will get his rebounds. Embiid will get his. And can both these guys go off in this game? It's possible. So this is probably the way. I'll probably put one build maybe with Giannis and Embiid, and another maybe with Giannis as a one-off. But again, same type of thing. Giannis is a one-off. Being as popular as he is, I probably would use him as in kind of lower-owned builds. But the good thing is we don't have to, whether this is a good thing or not, we don't have to worry about, I don't think, any of this other dreck. That's another data scientist term. Like I don't think you're going to need to play Daniel House. even though he's projecting to be a pretty decent play, I don't know if you're going to need to play him. You might, you know where you might need. I mean, you might need to play him if you want to do something like, you know, uh, Giannis, Embiid. Let's say you want to try to get in LeBron also, and then you're certainly going to need to play Daniel House. But are you going to need to play him if you get two studs? Can you make it work? Probably not. You probably are going to need to play someone like Daniel House if you play both of these studs like this. So Daniel House is a value play that might be necessary depending on which route you want to go. Other people from this game, PJ Tucker. He's another guy who I wish he were less than 4,400, but whatever. He projects fine. And he also, for what it's worth, he plays well in these types of games. Call it whatever, dismiss it if you want, but he does. He does a really good job against Draymond Green, so he might make he's going to play 35, 36 minutes anyway, so I was about to say he's going to get extra minutes. He'll play probably more minutes than Draymond Green regardless. So maybe PJ Tucker, maybe Daniel House as your value place in this game. For the Houston game. I was going to say from the Milwaukee-Philadelphia side, I don't think we can get to guys like, what are the guys you have to get to? Like George Hill, Dante DiVincenzo. If you want, you could go to Brook Lopez, who's had a couple of good games, but I don't really want to chase those types of games, especially if he doesn't project all that great. So if you pull up his games, you'll see that he does have some 3 straight 30-point games in a row, which obviously everybody would take in this spot. He actually might make Embiid's life a little more difficult here because Embiid wants to go out and chase the 3-point line. He just doesn't want to do it. So he could make Embiid's life a little difficult here. So maybe they give him some more minutes to do that. It's possible. So I'll make him a player I wouldn't put out of my player pool. But again, not the biggest deal in the world. And the last game, or should I say the first game, right, is Boston and Toronto. And I do feel as though this game provides the opportunity to get an edge. Because with all of these late games, or with this island game situation, I do feel as though a lot of the sharp players are going to not want to spend that much salary in the first game so that they can do, more interesting things in the later games. So, like, for example, if they play a Giannis in game 2 and it's not working out, they're going to want to make some swaps in the Clipper game between Paul George and or Kawhi. Or they could maybe want to go from LeBron to AD or something like that. So I feel as though this being the first game, which is usually the first game is one which gets a lot of ownership, I feel as though because of this island game situation, I even think the sharper players are going to want to reserve some flexibility for these later games. So guys that project well, that take up some salary, I think could have some extra boost here. So the guys that fit that bill, unfortunately, Boston is not really popping with anybody so great. Presuming Hayward plays, for example, I don't really see Kemba, Gordon Hayward, Tatum, Jaylen Brown, anybody being that great of a play, which is a little annoying because I did want to try that. Maybe Kemba. I'm going to revisit that a little bit because I would love to play someone from this side if I could. On the other hand, Toronto, there are all kinds of possibilities that you can play here. So you could play Serge Ibaka at what looks to be kind of a disgusting $7,300 price tag, but with all these guys that continue to be out, he's going to play a bunch of minutes, so he's possible. And Fred VanVleet, he looks to be a pretty good play also. And Kyle Lowry going all the way up to 8,500. he projects to be a really good play, and I don't know who's going to play him. Let's think of all the reasons why you wouldn't want to play him. I mean, you have you're playing the Celtics, which is just the worst matchup you could have. I wouldn't say the worst, but you know, people are going to be reading about how they're number whatever 1 or top 5 in defensive efficiency, and it's just a tough matchup. And you're going to be spending $8,500 of your salary to do that, where you could wait until the Clipper game and spend $7,900 on Paul George, who rates to be, I would say, significantly better than Kyle Lowry. But he does project pretty well, Kyle Lowry, and he does project very similarly to a lot of the, decently projecting players. Let's put it that way. I mean, I'll tell you this. I'm even looking at a different site now that's projecting these guys a little differently. And one of the sites I'm looking at doesn't even have Paul George with more fantasy points than Kyle Lowry. So I think that this Kyle Lowry thing is a way to get kind of some sneaky leverage on the guys that you want to get sneaky leverage on, right? You can get sneaky leverage on kind of the sharp players who are going to want to reserve the right to use their late swap expertise later and not spend so much salary earlier, right? Because if you think about it, there's not a lot of cheap guys to swap to later, but there are certainly a decent amount of higher price guys. So to waste a portion of your lineup with a higher priced guy I don't think it's something that a sharp player would want to do. So if you want to really be, this is either extra sneaky or extra stupid, right? It's kind of a fine line. Is you could do something like Lowry, or if you watch the news and you find that you like Kemba Walker, like if you think that he's going to project pretty well too, he's another guy that you could play, waste salary on what could be a good play, maybe not as great as some of these, but it's going to be, I think these guys are going to be lower owned than they should be. Now, can you do both? Can you do Lowry and Kemba? Sure. Why not? This is America, right? You can do whatever you want. So what did we learn here? All right, so what did we learn? So what we learned is that we went through this whole slate and there wasn't a lot of really cheap value to kind of look at. Like I looked at Daniel House like pretty quickly. The other guy I would mention, I guess Toronto, you could always, is OG Anunoby value at 5,400? He's okay. Rondes Hollis Jefferson, you hear from him. You hear a lot about him, but he's not that great. He's not that great a projection at 5,300. So I do feel as though that you can avoid, this slate looks like you could avoid, dipping into those cheap value guys. So if that's the case, how many studs can you play? How many do you need to play? Well, I can't give you all the answers because I don't know them. But the way I would look at this slate is just like all the others. Find the low-owned ideas or the lower-owned ideas that project similarly to the higher-owned, even better ideas. And I have to say that at least my first glance is this New Orleans-Denver game could be uber sneaky. And what's also going to be kind of funny is that if you play this Denver-New Orleans game and you get, you stack this up with the players you want, what's going to happen ownership-wise when people have to swap onto these guys? I don't know. Are you going to end up people swapping off of – there's nobody that people are going to swap off because none of these guys are going to be owned in the freaking first place. I don't know. That's my initial take. My initial take is as long as these projections kind of hold and the Denver-New Orleans guys are close enough to these other guys that this is a pretty decent way to approach a Christmas slate where no one – I would say no one because there are obviously some very sharp players. most people are going to want to play the Milwaukee, Philadelphia, or the Houston, Golden State, or the Lakers, Clippers. These are the best games. Actually, Golden State, Houston's not so great, but that at least has Harden and Westbrook in it. Who's going to want to play the freaking Boston against depleted Toronto? Who's going to want to stay up till 10:30 after all this Christmas stuff and all these great games and have to slog along with the freaking Nuggets? You know what I mean? I don't know. I can tell you one person who might be. So that's my view. I might come back and just do a FanDuel review also to see if there's any difference. But until then, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas. And I really hope to get on there on Christmas night at about, I guess it wouldn't be Christmas night. I guess it'd be 1 a.m, on the 26th, and have somebody sweating something good. Happy holidays, and I will see you soon.